I've had a lot of questions both in-game and in the comment sections about some of the basics around creating a build in the Division. Since patches 1.7 and 1.8 have been released, we've had a huge influx of new players either coming back to the game or starting fresh after moving away from other titles that haven't really met expectations. To be fair, the game doesn't really address a lot of these questions, and in fact it can actually point you in the wrong direction in some cases, and a lot of other information online is either outdated or more based around the endgame and endgame gear. So I'm going to attempt to run through the basics of creating a build. This is directed at people new to the game and wanting to get a bit of an understanding on what you should be looking for and how to get started on throwing together your first build. I'll try to keep this pretty simple, so there's likely to be a few questions that come out of this. Let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to provide an answer. If there's a lot, I may put together a part 2 to this guide where I go into a little bit more depth. As I'm writing this, we're in the patch 1.8 version of the game. As all RPG, MMO, looter shooters go, a lot can change over a few patches, so I'll make sure to add any changes that come up into the description, or release a new version of this video if things change too much. Firstly, I need to state, there really isn't a wrong way of creating a build. It's one of the things I love about these types of games. There's an unlimited number of build variations. As I've shown in a previous video, even with a subpar, unoptimized build, you can still complete most content in the game. Although I must admit, you'd have a pretty hard time in some activities. So although there is no wrong way of doing it, there is certainly some more efficient and effective builds that will make your life a lot easier when you get into some of these in-game missions. With this video, I'll attempt to show this. I'll also include a couple of very basic builds at the end of the video to get you started. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you've made it to level 30 and to World Tier 5. The same principles can be used in Tier 1 to 4, but in all honesty, if you aren't there yet, get to World Tier 5. This is where the game really begins. First step. What do you want to achieve with the build? Do you want to be putting out maximum damage with your guns? Do you like the idea of having strong damage dealing skills? Would you rather play as more of a support build within the team? Or maybe you'd rather focus on sustainability because you'll be playing solo most of the time. Whatever way you want to go, you'll need to figure this out first. You can spec into multiple different things, and this will be fine for a lot of the easier content in the game, but later on you'll find you won't be quite strong enough or do enough damage to be able to make it through some of the more difficult content. The game has changed over the years in the direction to promote more of a role-based play. For example, a team consisting of a healer, DPS build, skill build, and a tank build will have more success than a team full of solo player builds. This example is probably oversimplifying it a little bit, but hopefully you get the idea. Build synergy and team synergy is the key. So it isn't necessary to start out with picking your role, but it's a good practice to get into. And don't worry about being stuck in a certain role, this is why we have loadouts. You can save and chop and change between builds depending on the activity and what your team requires. Once you've decided on the build or role direction you'd like to take, you can now start picking through the items you pick up to find the best gear and weapons to complement your build. So if you are after a skill power build, you should look out for gear that complements electronics and skill haste, and weapons that have talents that will further increase the damage or intensity of your skills. With a DPS build, you want your gear to help with increasing your firearms and damage output, with weapons that further increase your damage. As a solo player, you'll need to be conscious of your health, so stamina and health replenishment talents are a must. I'm not going to go through every weapon talent and gear piece that's available, but I'll run through some of the gear pieces based on the 3 roles: DPS, skill power, solo. Shown on screen right now are my recommendations as far as the gear major and minor attributes go. For the purpose of this video, I'm showing gear more suited to the PvE aspect of the game. This is much easier to understand and a much better place to start when you don't have all the best gear in the game. In regards to the solo and DPS builds, the major and minor stat options are very similar. The main stats, firearms, stamina, electronics, are where they will differ. Set pieces are gear that offer unique bonuses based on the number of other pieces you have equipped from the same set. For example, the Nomad set. If you have 2 pieces of Nomad equipped, you gain 15% health on kill. 3 pieces, you gain an additional constant heal, and with 4 pieces equipped, you gain Path of the Nomad ability. These bonuses, particularly when you look at the full 4-piece sets, are quite powerful and offer you the ability to really specialize in a particular role. There are currently 14 different sets available, each with their own talents and their own part to play. Examples of these are Nomad, solo play, huge emphasis on keeping you alive. Tactician, skill build, focuses on max skill power and getting your skills back quickly. Strikers, DPS, more hits equals more damage. Classified pieces are the same as normal set pieces, but with higher stats, and the ability to grant even greater bonuses with 5 and 6 piece perks. These can be identified by the file icon located on the top right. These can be used with normal set items, but in order to unlock the 5 and 6 piece bonuses, you need all pieces to be classified. So if you had 4 normal set items and added a 5th classified item to the same set, you'll still only have the 4 piece bonus unlocked. Classified items are currently the most sought after gear in the game. Outside of global events, only the most difficult in-game activities will award these pieces. Gear mods are additional modifications that you can add to your gear to further personalize your build. There are 2 types of gear mods. Standard gear mods, which increase a certain main stat, firearms, stamina or electronics, and also provide a bonus stat, and performance mods, which gives you another bonus stat. Your gear can have 5 standard gear mods and 4 performance mods. On your build screen you can see what gear pieces can take which mods based on these slots at the bottom left for standard mods, and bottom right for performance mods. Exotic items are rare pieces of gear that are most sought after, much like the classified gear. They are the equivalent of legendary or artifact items in other games. Exotics are known for the unique, exclusive talents they have. Some are good, some are not. Regardless, hold on to them. Quite often these items are reviewed, and an upcoming patch can see these go from trash tier to one of the most sought after items in the game. Regardless of whether you're running a skill build or a DPS build, skills have a large part to play. Like everything else we've covered up until now, you need to pick skills that complement your build. Damage dealing skills won't do anything for you if you aren't running high enough skill power. So a DPS or solo build should focus more on skills like the pulse and first aid that will help with damage and survivability. Skill power builds, this is where you shine. You can run things like support station and smart cover if you'd like to support the team, or you can push out some extra damage using skills like Seeker Mine, Sticky Bomb or Turret. Talents add small bonuses that can really make or break certain situations. Some are quite specific with what they give and can really make a difference depending on what you're running. As a rough guide, some of the more commonly used talents are Critical Save, Combat Medic, Strike Back, Precision, On the Move, and One is None. Have you found the perfect weapon, but it has a talent that just doesn't work for you? Or maybe you have a good Nomad piece that dropped with electronics, but you really needed firearms? No problem, this is where the recalibration station comes in. All weapons and gear can have a single perk or attribute re-rolled into something different. You can do this as many times as you want. For gear it costs standard credits, and weapons it costs Phoenix credits and weapon kits. The only exception is the classified gear. This can have 2 perks re-rolled. Every item excluding mods has a gear score. The gear score is an indication of how optimized the gear piece or weapon is. Your character is then given a gear score based on the average of all of your weapons and gear. This isn't an indication of the type of gear or weapon and has nothing to do with the talents. For example, if I had 2 lightweight M4s and one had a damage rating of 18.4k and the other had a rating of 18.2k, the one with the higher damage would have a higher gear score. But does that make it a better weapon? If the 18.2k has better talents, this is still a better gun to use. And the same goes for gear. A new player can be forgiven for thinking that the higher the gear score, the better the item is. This isn't necessarily untrue, but if the talents are worse and you end up breaking set bonuses, stick with the lower gear score items. I've seen a number of 285 plus gear score builds that are much less effective than some 260 gear score builds. Repeating myself again, it's all about synergy between the weapons, talents, and gear pieces. At almost 2 years old, I'm not sure how useful this video will be, but I love this game, and if I can help keep the player base growing, I'm more than happy to keep producing content like this. New players, let me know if I can provide more clarity, and I'll do my best either through the comment section or future videos. Day 1 or long-time players of the game, let me know if I've missed anything vital. As I said earlier, this is just meant to be a simplified version of how to create a build. There is a huge number of options that I haven't discussed here, but on request I'll be happy to go into more detail. On screen should be some very basic DPS, skill and solo builds that can be used as a starting point. Take a screenshot. But these should be taken as just that, a starting point. Modify and adapt these to your style of play. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video. Cheers!